Welcome back to the stall. I'm Jenny Lee, and this is
Cassandra.
You look so pretty today.
You look so pretty.
Thanks. Hey, and I'm so excited because we have a fabulous guest coming up. What a woman, and we're going to learn so much.
We do. All of the burning questions that we had from last week are finally going to get answered this week.
Yeah, and it's all about love,
Yeah.
right? The world's all about love. But I was so excited that she's coming on. This woman has such fabulous thoughts and perspectives on love. But my question is still, or my belief is that if we're going to really put love out there, love out into the world, be willing to love, have love come back to us, don't you think it still needs to come from within first? That we, the number one thing is us. Ooh, come on in.
Let's get down and dirty.
The totally unfiltered, honest.
Up to my brain.
I love your brain.
Stall talk.
Stall talk.
Y'all ready? I feel like this is such a big lesson that I've been learning these past few months.
Really?
A big one that I've learned is, as you know, I'm going to therapy. I've been practicing having self-love and respect for myself. And as I've been doing that, I've noticed that I'm attracting higher quality men. I think I talked a little bit about this on last week's episode, but for so long, I was wondering, why am I attracting losers? I'm like, why is every single guy that comes my way is such a headache, pain in my butt, and a loser? And now as I'm practicing self-love and self-respect, I feel like I'm not even attracting those quality of men anymore. The men that I'm attracting are so much higher quality men. And I think a big reason has to do because of all of the self-love I've been doing from inside and out.
I've had a bit of a hard time the last couple weeks. Someday I really have to push through and say, Jenny, come on. Love yourself. It's all good. Life is beautiful. Life is wonderful, which it is. So what I did for self-love this week is I was out in the stalls, in the barn, in the chicken coop every day for oh my goodness, I was out there 3 and 4 hours. And it was fabulous. Loving on Brianna and the goats and made her cookies and just, with my fluffy chickens and collecting eggs for Easter. That's what I did. And it really helped me. I just worked through it. What did you do this week? Just this week?
Multiple things for self-love this week. As you know, I just got a new apartment. It's right across the street from the beach. I spend every single day on the beach now. I take my dogs every day. It's literally right there. I open my front door and there's sand from the beach on my front door. So I love it. It's so beautiful. So every day I go on a little walk on the beach with my dogs. I spend time with my friends. It's a big priority for me, is spending time with my friends and my family. And tomorrow I'm actually going to be spending a little day getaway with all of my cousins in the mountains at my Aunt Gwen's house. So that'll be very fun and relaxing and a great way to catch up with my family.
See, what a wonderful week for you. So stay tuned because we have our love coach coming on, Stefani Seek, and can't wait.
The questions that you submitted on Instagram may show up in this episode, so stay tuned. Let's welcome the wonderful author and love coach Stefani Seek to the bathroom stall. Welcome to Stall Talk.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
We're so excited to have you.
We can't wait to discuss last week's episode and hear all about you being a love coach.
Yes, you brought up some really interesting points in your last episode, and I can't wait to talk about your dating questions.
I can't wait either. Before, can we have you introduce yourself and a little bit more about your story and your journey?
Yes. So I'm Stefani Seek. I grew up very conservative, Midwest, following the rules. I was a born people pleaser, which wasn't always a bad thing. It led me to achieve a lot early on. And then I was in corporate America for 25 years. Oh, wow. But through all of that outside success, I experienced falling in love twice, 2 marriages, and then getting divorced twice.
Wow.
And so there was a lot of shame and guilt that came from that. And I decided to drop everything and study, why do certain relationships work for the long term? Why do they, quote unquote, fail? and what makes us attract certain people. And so I started doing a lot of the energy work and really leaning in, because I have 3 daughters.
Wow.
And I did not want them to have to go through some of the same pain that I did. And I thought, if my 3 daughters read my first book, then great. That's all I needed. But it's expanded. And so now I really get to help women define what it is that they want, because a lot of women have given up on love. And we don't want that. We all want love.
You mentioned that you felt shame and guilt from those divorces. Did you feel that coming from yourself or from other people, outside people or family members?
That's a really good question. It was both.
Okay.
So part of it was that I had somehow failed. I had messed up. How could I be so successful in certain areas of my life and then just keep messing up? What was I missing? What was I missing in the signals of the partners that I was attracted to? But then if you are raised with certain religious beliefs or culture beliefs, you know, you can feel like you failed that community or your family. And you know, there's a society expectation of how we should show up in relationships and that perfect Instagram family. And when you don't achieve that, it can feel very disheartening.
Yeah.
Can you get a little deeper into why you decided to go from corporate America into life coaching?
I think what happened was when I was a little girl, I remember that I just always wanted love. And then I flash forward to a story in high school when a boy broke my heart. And I had this almost flash forward of, it's going to take me a long time to find love. And will anyone ever love me for me? Because I somehow translated that if I did things, then I was worthy of love. If I showed success, then I could earn the love.
You're preaching to the choir.
And I think so many women feel that way, even subconsciously. And after I went through the 2 divorces, and especially looking at my daughters and the women I would talk to who just, even if they were in unhappy marriages, that we are all worthy of love. And I needed to take all the things I learned about relationships in sales, in corporate, because I was really good, always a good study of reading the room, energetically connecting with all types. And I thought, if I can help women draw out those doubts, fears, worries about themselves and what they deserve in love, that is my life's mission, because I never want a woman to feel like no one will ever love me for me, like just for existing, just for being me. And especially when my guy walked into my life 4 years ago and I had started on this journey. But I always say the first time he brought me coffee in bed, I wept. Aww. I cried my eyes out because no man had ever done that for me. And I cried more about how I sold myself short. Why wouldn't have I expected that from previous marriages? And so we need to really love ourselves to know what we truly deserve. And that's my life's work now.
I am very curious with the first 2 marriages. What do you think were the catalysts that made you realize that these weren't going to be successful?
Well, when we overgive and people please, we attract in partners who take advantage of that. And
wow, I needed to hear that.
Yes. And I was not loving myself enough in retrospect to know what I deserved. Now, at the time, it felt like love, and it was love. I now say that my 2 ex-husbands are my greatest teachers because anyone we're in a relationship with is a mirror.
Yeah, they are.
And they reflect back
what you need to heal.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And so I wasn't clear on what I really wanted. I wasn't asking the universe for everything that I wanted and deserved. For me, I was settling. And I also projected to the end. And I want to talk about that with you. Yeah. Because a lot of young women especially, they feel the pressure. You were saying, Cass, that your friends are getting married and they're having babies.
Yeah.
And there's this pressure of, when am I going to find someone that I can have that end result with?
Yeah.
The marriage, the babies, the house, the kids.
I already feel late, and I'm 24. I'm like, I should have met him when I was 12.
You're so not late. So not late. You have so much time.
I feel worried. I should be even more worried.
So we need to stop projecting to the end. And had I really been present in the early stages of dating, I would have seen the yellow and red flags. And actually, I saw them. I just dismissed them and thought, well, this person's meant for me. I can overlook that. I can love those flaws right on out of them. But I was also flawed in not knowing what I deserved and not speaking my authentic voice.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Just going back. Loving yourself enough. What does that look like? Because there's loving yourself and then you meet someone. But how do you know you've loved yourself enough to then go into a relationship with someone to love them?
That's so good. It's a journey. There is no end result of I am now loving myself to the max. We're always looking for those ways. So some ways we can practice self-love, which I talk about, I call it your true north on your love compass, is to look at where do I feel aligned on the inside? And where do I notice that I'm starting to say things just to make something work where I don't really believe that that's the truth deep down inside?
That really hit hard.
You are preaching to the choir, because I feel like I've spent like this past year like practicing self-love, but now that I'm like dating somebody, I feel like it hasn't been put to the test until now that I'm actually dating somebody, if that makes sense.
They say that the advanced course of, loving yourself and being in a relationship and healing is actually being intimate with someone in a relationship. And so the real work starts when you're actually in the relationship.
Right.
Is that right?
You can't really, you can have a wonderful relationship with yourself in terms of taking care of your physical health. I talk about in my book, dating yourself. There's a whole chapter dedicated to how you feel confident when you're out in the world by yourself, because once you're a whole confident woman, you'll attract more confident men. But there is that process of you're not going to know some of those insecurities until the relationship mirror is right in front of you. And I found that we will take little things, like even if the guy says, this is the kind of food I want, we're going to go out to this kind of food, this kind of cuisine, and you don't like that, but you fake it and say, sure, I love Indian food or I love Italian food, but you don't. And you take these little tiny 1 degree turns of inauthenticity, and then before you know it, you're like 180 degrees off.
It's like you contort yourself. You contort and perform and like just for the sake of the connection because you don't want to be alone.
I feel like a lot of us, or at least me specifically, I'll try to do things to like, in my mindset, I'm like, I'm trying to get them to like me. But now I'm like, wait, why is he the prize? Yeah, it's like this should be more of a mutual thing, like us both trying to get to know each other and not just me trying to like prove to them why. Because when I was insecure, I felt like I was trying to prove to them why they should like me.
That's exactly what I did. I would sell myself. I was in corporate sales. So I'm like, well, I'll just apply what works in corporate and I'll just go on dates and like, convince them why I'm the right fit. And I never leaned back. And you talked about going into your feminine, Ivanna.
Being the flower, Stephanie.
Be the flower. Let them come to you a little bit more. And then also be curious. I didn't ask enough questions. So when we get that red flag moment, he says something on a date or she says something on a date.
Oh, yeah. And we just like, I pretend I didn't hear it.
You do. Right. Or you maybe tell a story that kind of glosses over it because you try to relate because you want to please them so much. Curiosity is our best friend in dating. We have to lean forward and say, really, could you just tell me more about that? Not defensively, not accusatory, but just genuine curiosity. Had I asked some of those second and third level questions, I wouldn't have gotten married.
So I asked a what are your intentions question.
And that's a big girl question.
Oh, and he didn't like that.
Was that on a first date?
That was before the first date.
Okay, so were you in a chat or
Actually,
on the phone?
sorry, it was after the first date on a phone call talking about how good the date was. And then I was like, yeah, so what are your intentions? He's like, I don't like that question. And I was like, you don't have to like it. He's like, it's almost like asking, what's my credit score? And I was like, well.
What is it?
Yeah.
That would be a good question to know before getting married.
It was almost like I'm asking the question for my own clarity. And the fact that you're getting defensive is the first sign of, well, what's beneath that?
So what did you want to get out of that question? I'm curious.
What are his intentions wanting to get to know me?
Okay. So that question is very much like the question of what are you looking for? A lot of dating coaches will say, ask that question. I have an entire chapter in my book dedicated to why I cannot stand that question as a dating coach. And I think this might help answer why he was defensive. He might not be a defensive guy. That might have been more of a yellow flag just because he didn't know how to answer. But when I met the guy I've now been with for 4 years, he's the love of my life. And if I would have asked him on our first date, or maybe even second, like, what are your intentions? What are you looking for? He would have never said the things that I wanted. He had been single for a while, into his music and acting career. And had he asked me what I wanted, he would have run for the hills. If I said, well, I want a guy who's really nice to my 3 daughters, and sometimes we have to be at home and we can't go out because I have them, and what's that going to look like? We aren't ready for that question that early in the relationship.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
Is that question okay to ask if the guy wants to sleep with you on the first date?
Oh, well,
Then you know
he
his
wants-
intentions.
I'm sorry. I have to give you context and I have to be real.
yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
If he has expressed that he wants to sleep with you on
Oh,
the
yeah,
first
he
date,
did.
or he's like making the move,
Yeah.
I would rather see you say, I'm just not ready for that step with you. Not to go into the deep philosophical questions, because let's be real.
I love you. I love this. This is great.
My boyfriend would have totally slept with me on the first date if I would have let
course.
him. Most guys, they will, because they don't know where
And
it's going to
girls.
go. And girls. I have a lot of girlfriends who they're like, I'm gonna take it where I can get it. He's hot. Let's do it.
Right.
That's really my intention. And then I start getting to know them. And I'm like, wait, you're actually kind of cool. And then that's how we become like sneaky links.
I love
Sneaky
that.
links.
Yeah. At least mine always will start off as like just that. And
Yeah.
then as we like spend the night together, I'm like, wait, you're actually like kind of cool. Your personality is pretty decent.
Yeah.
So mine is kind of the opposite.
Right.
Yeah.
There are plenty of people who've slept together on the first date that end up in a long-term, very happy
I've heard that
relationship.
before.
That one hasn't happened now.
I'm curious though, because I've had male coaches, not dating coaches, but male coaches. And one male coach said to me, ask the guy what his intentions are, be that direct. So I'm curious from a woman's perspective.
Yeah. I think that puts us almost into our masculine energy.
Interesting, okay.
And then they don't know how to receive that because they're trying to show up in their masculine energy to
Yeah.
impress you.
Yeah.
I think that question is very appropriate once you know that the relationship's going somewhere. If they want to sleep with you on the first date and you don't want to, just call that out for what it is. Don't go so deep. But if you end up wanting to sleep with someone on the first date, it doesn't matter. At some point, you start to recognize this could be going somewhere. So then let's talk about that. But I think we need to have a little more fun on the first couple of dates. Like, let's just relax, be the flower.
Be the flower.
Just see what happens, be curious.
In all honesty, my defensiveness came up when he wanted to sleep with me on the first date. So it's like, whoa, okay, what are your intentions?
Yeah,
And that's it. Both just went into defense mode, if I'm honest.
that's right. Because you kind of put up a wall
Yeah.
energetically, and
Yeah.
then he put up a
Yeah.
wall, and then you just build that wall.
Yeah, because it's almost like, well, do you have any respect for me if you've like, that's where it's just going to go? And I think that's where, for me, the issue lies. It's like, okay, are you leading with your heart or are you leading with your dick?
That's right. Well,
I'm sorry. I'm just
many
being
guys
honest.
lead with their dick, right?
I mean, let's
I'm
be
like,
real.
I don't even have a dick, and I lead with my dick sometimes too. So I'm just being for real. But while we're on the topic, I have a question about when you are seeking a relationship. Is there a time that's too soon to sleep with them, or is there like an appropriate time to sleep with them? What do you suggest?
I actually researched that extensively, and I wrote about it in the book because I knew people were going to ask that question. And there is no one right answer,
Okay.
but average shows it's after about 8 or 9 dates.
Okay.
So just so you have like but it doesn't necessarily
more to
mean it's
go.
good or bad.
Good to know.
It's all when energetically it feels right. If you are feeling in your authentic self and you feel like, gosh, this is so in alignment with what I want. I do want to get in bed with this guy. I do.
Yeah.
That's not bad. That's okay. And we cannot blame guys for wanting to sleep with us. It doesn't mean that they're a bad guy. It could be that they're just used to it. That's a dating habit. And they've been with women who said, yes, I will sleep with you on the first date. But maybe in saying, no, that I won't, he will kind of sit up and say, oh, wait, I've met this beautiful woman who's smart and attractive, intelligent, and she doesn't want to sleep with me on the first date. That's interesting. Like I would play it a little bit more, right? Be flirty with the no. Be flirty with the no, like, I think you're really hot, but you're not getting in my pants tonight. You know?
Can get that cookie later.
I think also I'm adjusting culturally to the men here in America. Coming from Australia, they're not as forward and forthcoming as I've been experiencing since I've been here. So that's also interesting. And yeah, obviously European men I've been used to as well coming from Australia. They're not as forward as American men. So yeah, culturally it's been interesting to observe.
So you're saying that Chris Hemsworth is even more wonderful than I thought he was?
Wow, thank you so much for answering all of these questions. Time for the hot seat, you guys. We have lots more cast members that have questions for you. So let's get into it. On to the hot seat.
It's Jenny Lee in the hot seat, and this is
Skylar in the hot seat, and we are so excited to ask Stefani some of our most burning questions about dating.
yes, and I have one that's always bugged me or whatever. Do we have that one person out there or that soulmate, or could it be multiples or something that we're looking for?
I just had this conversation yesterday with a client. I think there's multiple. I have experienced that. I think if we were to pin all of our hopes on this infinitesimal opportunity to find the one person out of a million, we would feel hopeless, right? How would that happen? I think there are many, and it just depends on timing and being ready to receive them. So don't worry about finding the one. Instead, focus more on, I'm drawing in, I'm attracting the person who will love me for me.
There's lots of fish in the sea.
Absolutely.
Yes, and this is interesting because I agree with this, but then there's also another side where it's like, okay, like if I do know that I might have multiple soulmates, how do I know that I'm not being too picky?
So you have to go with what feels right in the present moment, because you could end up sacrificing what feels right now for the future, and it's all part of our journey. So I will say, actually, that in some ways my ex-husbands were soulmates, because soulmates, that doesn't mean perfection. Soulmate means we came together to learn and to grow.
Wow. That's a biggie.
What if the person, like looking back at it, like you just feel like it wasn't, like I feel like we know if it's a soulmate, like even if you did learn and grow from the relationship, but they're just, you don't feel seen or like heard or understood by them, like do you think that's still a soulmate even though you are learning and growing from it?
I do. I think that's controversial because I've gone back and forth, because I have had some past relationships that were not healthy, where, women can be mistreated, right? And so it's hard to give that almost award to someone in your past who didn't treat you well, but they weren't ready to grow with you. If you went into that relationship with the best of intentions and you felt that honest connection and they couldn't evolve with you, they're just not ready to be on that full journey with you. So I do call Joe, my man of 4 years, the love of my life. But he is a soulmate, but I wouldn't call him the soulmate, because I have met men along the way where I chose to either be in a relationship or not be in a relationship, but you felt like, gosh, we recognize each other, So don't put too much on the soulmate. Just look for that beautiful connection in the present and trust yourself.
But with all that said too, Stephanie, it's like you're a walking encyclopedia of dating and love. So for those of us who have dated a lot, because I'm a little bit older, how do you keep your head in the game and still think, oh, it's really going to be wonderful out there, and I'm a flower, and there's going to be lots of flowers or whatever.
Yeah, we cannot be falsely positive, right? Because then that feels so inauthentic. It doesn't feel true to us. So I always say, wherever you're at, if you're feeling disappointed, if you're feeling like, well, I haven't met this person yet, just go for the next best feeling. And that could be, I love affirmations. So instead of saying, trying to be like, he's out there, I'm so positive. Instead it's, I've learned and I've grown from these past relationships, and now I'm really clear on what I want. And I'm so looking forward to experiencing what I want. That feels more authentic. It feels like, okay, I can do that. I can wake up every morning and say, I'm looking forward to meeting the right guy.
Well, you're a wealth of information, and for all the Stall Talk babes out there, isn't this fabulous? Thank you for being here. Oh, so much fun.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Jenny Lee. Thank you, Skylar.
And let's take it back to Cass and Ivanna, because they're going to be asking some of the questions that you submitted.
That's a wrap on our hot seat. You guys submitted on Instagram some of your burning questions, so I'm going to ask you now what our Instagram followers had for you. Let's see. One of our followers asked, how do you have a man chase after me?
Okay, so we do want a man to chase, because men typically love that hunt. They want to feel like they are winning you over. So we need to drip like a faucet. I will explain. When we're dating them, we don't show up and hit them like a roaring fire hose of every thought we've ever had about a relationship, our ex-boyfriends, what our friends say, how many babies we want to have, or what we want for our career. We want to drip that information as we go. That will make them more curious about you, and they'll lean in. And they'll say, oh gosh, I didn't find out all that stuff I needed to know about Cass or Ivanna, and I want to know more. I'm just dying to know more about this woman. Be a little mysterious.
Next question. Is there a way to tell if you should wait for somebody or not?
If you should wait for somebody, let's interpret that. What do you think they mean?
I'm thinking when it comes to waiting, like for them to solidify the relationship.
To commit 100%.
Yes.
So probably that is rooted in, I'm hanging on, I might be in a situationship, what is this? And if you can be in the present every time you're talking and dating this person, if the present feels good to you, keep going. Because it could be that we're projecting to, well, I need to be engaged in a year. And we haven't even talked about that. But if the relationship feels good, go with it. However, if you start to see signs of him pulling away, he's distracted you, like your soul can tell that energetically he is just not there for you, then it's time to have a conversation and say, I really like you. I think you're great. I think we could be a good match, but I'm sensing you're pulling away. Could we have a conversation about that? And just have it takes a lot of courage.
It's
it sounds
hard.
easy when I say that.
It's not.
Because you've got a lot of collateral built up with this person. But the more you let it drag out, the more you're hurting yourself and the more you're hurting them. Keep in mind, they're also deserving of a great relationship. No matter what your opinion is of them, they might have work to do, but we want them to be happy too.
So where can viewers find you and your services?
So they can find me on Instagram at Stefani Seek Coach. And if you're listening to this and not watching it, Stefani is Stefani, Seek, Seek, like seek and you shall find love. And then my website is stefaniseek.com. And I'm really excited because I am launching my first group coaching program, super affordable for women. And it starts in May. So come to my website, check
We're
that out.
going to have to hop on that.
I think so too.
I have 2 books that are available on Amazon. The first is for younger women, ages 18 to 26, called The Love Compass, A Young Woman's Guide to Finding Her Authentic Voice in Dating and Relationships. And then the one that just premiered at an Academy Awards gifting event, which I'm really excited about. It just came out in February of 2025, and it's called Your Love Compass, A Woman's Unconventional Guide to Dating and Relationships. And that's for all of you over the age of 26.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, for coming on the show. It was such a pleasure having
It
you.
really was.
It was
Thank
wonderful
you.
to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that was a great conversation.
Amazing. I need to read her book ASAP.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. What a wealth of information, huh? All
Yeah.
about the dating love world. Ah!
It was so interesting to me how she said, when you have more self-love for yourself, you attract better love.
What a relief from last week.
It was. Stephanie actually gifted all of our Stall Talk viewers a special code, so take a look out for it in the description. That's all from us.
Yes, and thanks for watching or listening to another episode of Stall Talk. Fabulous.